Am I unreasonable for being topless at home? I have a son, 4 months old, I'm breastfeeding, and he's forever spitting up on me, and we're trying to give as much skin-to-skin contact as possible. Because of this, I've pretty much stopped wearing clothes at home. I'll wear them when I go out, obviously, but in the privacy of mine, and my boyfriend's flat. I just go bare-chested. My in-laws were meant to come by around 6 p.m. and instead came by over an hour early, and let themselves in with the spare key. I was sleeping on the sofa with my son on my chest. They saw everything. I woke up to them yelling at me to put a shirt on, and asking why I didn't do that sooner if I knew they'd be over today. I maintained that they were a full hour early, and why on earth would they just let themselves in when I didn't answer the door? My boyfriend wants me to apologize. I refuse. Who's the unreasonable one here? Also, I know of my sleeping situation as being a risk of suffocation and SIDS. Please know that I am fully aware of this, and I'm taking all measures to avoid any injury or death of my child. This was a one-off event after he fell asleep on top of me, and we napped for less than an hour, probably closer to half an hour. I appreciate the concern, but this is the only time it's happened, and it won't be happening again. Conclusion: I caved because they are the only people I have close by right now. My boyfriend is mad at me for making things awkward, and my in-laws are annoyed by what they saw, so I just called them, and apologized. Going forward I will assume they will be early, and not nap or be shirtless on days they are coming in case they arrive ahead of time. Am I the unreasonable one for letting my 7-year-old daughter call my husband daddy, against the wishes of her biological father, my ex-husband? My ex-husband left me when I was 2 months pregnant. When my daughter turned 4 months old, he married his current wife. I met my husband when my daughter was 2 years old, and married him when she turned 3. My daughter is now 7 years old and I have a 3-year-old son with my husband. My ex has 2 daughters with his wife, who are 6 and 4. My ex has an every other weekend visitation with our daughter. Now, my daughter used to call my husband Poppy, but ever since the birth of my son, my daughter has started calling my husband Daddy. That's what I call my husband when I address him in front of my son, and my daughter has kind of picked up on that. We never told her no, because my husband loves my daughter, and thinks of her as his own. He has stayed up nights taking care of her the times she has been sick. Now, she doesn't have the same relationship with her stepmother. She has always called her stepmother by her actual first name, and it has always been that way, even though her stepmother has known her for a longer time than my husband. Here's why I'm wondering if I'm the unreasonable one. The other night, when me and my husband went to pick up my daughter from her dad's, my daughter ran out of their door happily saying, "Mommy and Daddy are here, I'm going home." When my ex heard her address my husband as Daddy, he turned visibly upset. Later when we got home, my ex blew up on my phone saying that I was emotionally abusing my daughter by making her call another man Daddy, and that I needed to make her stop. I said that our daughter has all the right to call my husband Daddy if it makes her happy. He then asked me how I'd feel if he made our daughter call his wife Mommy. I told him that if my daughter hasn't called her Mommy after 6 years of knowing her, it is because she never wanted to. I said that it isn't my fault if our daughter feels closer to her stepfather, and actually loves our family together. After saying that, I hanged up. The next day my ex-mother-in-law called me accusing me of parental alienation. This is honestly messing with my mind. My husband loves my daughter. Is it really bad if we let her call him Daddy? He loves it, and in fact, he always says that he has 2 kids. Am I the unreasonable one for not letting a family member I barely know drive my expensive car in an emergency? I was at my in-laws' house yesterday, alone with their goddaughter. We'll call her Ashley. She's 28, while my husband was out doing stuff with his parents to discuss important family matters. I was already feeling pretty stressed and anxious about how their conversation was going to go. I don't really have a great relationship with Ashley, so I was just keeping to myself in one of the guest rooms on my laptop with a large glass of wine. About an hour later she comes in, panicked, asking if she can borrow my car. Apparently, her high school-age sister got in a really bad fight with their extremely dysfunctional father, and needed to be picked up. My car is a new Mercedes that cost me around 80 grand. I absolutely did not want her taking my car, especially somewhere that was almost an hour away. I asked her if their dad got physical with her sister in this fight, and she said no. So, I told her I would rather her wait until my in-laws got back, and see if she could take their car. She starts yelling at me that they probably won't be back for a few hours, and she needs to get her sister ASAP. I told her that unless she believes her sister's safety is at risk, I don't feel comfortable with her taking my car. She asked if I could drive her to get her and I told her I had too much wine to drive. She then proceeds to crap on me for being irresponsible for drinking, and not anticipating I might have to drive, as well as selfish for not letting her take my car. When they get back, she asks to take their car, and makes a huge deal about how I wouldn't let her take mine. She goes on about how my fancy car is more important than a child in crisis. I told them she said the girl wasn't in any danger, and she tells me to F off before she gets in their car to leave. My in-laws said she's just being an overprotective big sister, and not to worry about it. When my husband was driving us home, he told me I made the right call because Ashley is a very reckless driver, and totaled a car a couple years ago after driving too fast. However, the next morning my in-laws text me that Ashley was incredibly upset and I should have just let her take my car. So, am I the unreasonable one here? Like I said, she told me the kid wasn't in any danger. I feel like I'm being shat on for having boundaries. Am I off base? My ex, we'll call him Dave, found me on social media the other week and wanted me back in his life. It's been 7 years since we've been together and I have no intention of taking him back. I met Dave my freshman year of college. My parents and his mom did not approve of our relationship, so we had to date secretly. This lasted about 9 months. The first 2 months was good, but then when we came back for our second semester he changed. He became more clingy and wanted to know where I was almost all the time. It especially got bad when I went on a trip and hung out with a guy friend most of the time. He read my private messages between me and my mother. She told me she thought he was controlling and Dave thought she didn't like him because he was a different race from me. He even told me one time that he thought my father was darker skinned than he is, which is 110% not true. The worst was when it came to sexual stuff. He would constantly ask me for a sexual mouth favor. Whenever I said no, he would convince me otherwise. Oh well, I pleased you yesterday, so now you have to. You owe me for doing XYZ, etc. It sucks so badly. He even kissed another girl while we were together. She was a part of a play he was in and constantly flirted with him, even though she knew he was taken. He would later end up in her bed shortly after we broke up. One instance that sticks out and has permanently scarred me is the week before our final exams. I had been helping out a friend with her senior project. It was a dance club, and we had practice every other evening. One night I was running late to practice and I got a text from Dave. He told me that in the sunlight you could see my blue and green striped panties through my leggings. I didn't care at the time because I was late and texted him. Not a single F was given that day. It wasn't a long walk to where I was practicing, so I really didn't care if someone saw. After practice I went to his dorm room. The door was locked, so I went to the other side door since I was good friends with his roommates. There I saw him standing with his roommates looking very pissed. He told me we had to talk. I don't remember much of the conversation because I was crying the entire time. I remember him telling me he's gonna break up with me. There were things in there about my parents, but I don't remember what they were exactly. After about 10 minutes and my roommate and best friend at the time comforting me and trying to help, Dave stood in front of me. He then said to me, "You know what? No. We're not gonna break up. We're gonna stay together forever, get married and have children, and raise them in a little white padded room in straitjackets." He then got closer to me and whispered in my ear, "Wouldn't you like that?" He then grabbed me by my shoulders and repeated the question. I screamed, "Stop, don't touch me, you're scarring me." He told me he was just playing around. I knew that wasn't joking, that was real. Dave then picked up a pair of scissors and threatened to cut himself in front of me. I grabbed his arms and told him not to do it. He then threatened to cut me. I told him I didn't care if he did. He then threw the scissors across the room and held me. The rest of the night was a blur to me and I hope it stays that way. I didn't return to college for personal reasons. Dave came to see me once that summer. Then one day I tried to sneak out and got caught with him. I was immediately grounded and had my laptop and phone taken from me. When I did have my phone, my parents would monitor what I was doing / who I was talking to. Dave has tried to call me but I wouldn't pick up because I didn't want my parents hearing me. Finally, at the end of July, Dave broke up with me. Within 2 weeks he had a new girlfriend. I tried to move on. I started seeing a therapist and was diagnosed with major depression and general anxiety disorder, and I was put on medication soon after. I started to feel better when I got a call from Dave. He told me that I would hear a rumor that wasn't true. The rumor was that he had raped a girl. At first I believed him that it was a rumor, then I figured out who the girl was. I'm bisexual and had fallen for a girl, we'll call her Tina, while I was dating Dave. Tina was the girl and she called me crying telling me what happened. I believed her immediately but let it slide. I don't know why. I went on with life and soon met my amazing boyfriend. I have told him everything about Dave over time. However, in our first month of dating I wasn't sure if we'd last. During that time Dave told me he'd be in my area and wanted to meet. So I snuck out, successfully, and met up with Dave. The second I saw him I knew I didn't want to be there. Dave has this possessive look in his eyes like "That's right, you're mine." That scared me. I stayed with him for about an hour. During this time we did sexual things in the back of my car. I pretended to like it so it would satisfy him and he'd leave me alone. When it was done, I went home and showered. I remember during that shower I realized I didn't want this guy in my life and wanted to be with my boyfriend. I later told my boyfriend about what Dave did to me in the back of my car. He never shamed me for it because he knew I didn't want anyone besides him. He forgave me and we have not talked about it since. Previously, I had given Dave my boyfriend's number because he just wanted to talk to him and tell him he's lucky to have me. That was a damn lie. Dave catfishes my boyfriend by pretending to be a girl from my boyfriend's college. This went on for about 3 weeks, but thankfully my boyfriend never questioned our relationship. Dave called my boyfriend once and my boyfriend didn't listen and just continued playing the game he was playing. Dave would constantly tell me to break up with my boyfriend. I had told him no a few times and he was angry. Once he got so angry and I lied saying I broke up with him. It felt like he wanted me all to himself even though he had a girlfriend at the time. After a few more months of harassment from Dave, long late night phone calls that I didn't want, another meetup that had sexual stuff, showing up to my retail job and demanding I kiss him, he finally said goodbye to me. I told my mom the next day that we had to change my phone number. I deleted my Instagram and started a new one. I blocked his number and his Facebook so he couldn't find me. About 2 years pass and I'm starting to move on. Still have the same BF and I'm starting to manage my depression better. Dave found me on Facebook under a different profile. He apologized to me and I forgave him. I thought this would be the end of it but no. A few weeks later he messaged me and told me he loved me, that he wanted me to break up with my boyfriend, that he was bipolar, which I kinda already knew. I told him no and goodbye. I blocked that profile too. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I am now 26, still with the same guy. We live together, I have a career, and we're gonna get married in the future. Now, I woke up to a message on my Instagram. It's Dave. He wanted to make sure I was okay during this pandemic. He didn't care if I answered or not. He wanted to be my friend and wanted another chance. All I said to him was stop. I told him that I had finally moved on from everything he'd done to me, all the nightmares he gave me, the panic attacks, the strain on my relationship with my family. I reminded him about the children and straitjackets comment and he told me that he said that to stop me from cutting myself. Bullcrap. He also told me to consider what my family had done to him for not accepting him. He then told me that we could help each other. I told him that he wanted to control me and that my family didn't like him because of that. He thought it was his skin color. I swear to you all it was not. He then told me that he took a lot from my family because he was thinking about our feelings. I told him about 10 times I do not want you in my life ever again. I told him not to contact me or look for me. He then asked me if I still loved him. My words were, at first, I did but now I don't. There were even times I absolutely despised you. Now, I feel nothing for you. He then asked if I still had to work, and I simply said goodbye and blocked him. Now I am stronger than ever. I know what I want and it's not him. If he tried to contact me again, I will go to the police and start the process of getting a restraining order. Because this isn't even about protecting me anymore. It's about protecting my family and those I love. Dave made me realize my worth. I am not someone's toy that gets to play with whenever. I am someone who deserves love and respect. I know I didn't get that from him. I have had a few nightmares since that conversation. However, I know I'm better off with him out of my life. Brother-in-law wants more babies. My in-laws all think my wife and I are hypocrites, and we want to understand their perspective, and hopefully use that to figure out a way forward. My wife and I are both women. My wife and I want kids, and we would like it if they could be biologically related to us. But obviously there's an issue there as far as making babies goes. We were considering adoption when my wife suggested asking her older brother to donate sperm to us. I know this sounds batcrap crazy, but they're siblings, so they look a lot alike, and they're really close. And this is the closest we could possibly get to having a child that's biologically both of ours. The brother said he'd be willing to donate when we're ready, and can't wait to be an uncle. Since the brother agreed to this, he and his wife have found out that his wife can't have kids. Recently, the brother told us he wants to renegotiate the sperm donor situation. In short, he wants to make 5 babies with me. Again, I know how this sounds, and I wish this was not true. He and his wife want 3 kids. Me and my wife want 2. He wants me to go through 5 pregnancies, and he'll provide the sperm for each one, so biologically all 5 kids will be full siblings, but raised as cousins. We get how big a favor he'd be doing us by donating, and we were honestly thrilled when he agreed, but the thing is the amount of time he'd spent creating 5 babies is about an hour or so, and the amount of time I'd spend is nearly 4 years, without recovery time. I was fine with 2 lots of 9 months when I was keeping the babies, but the idea of carrying those 2 plus 3 additional pregnancies where I didn't keep the babies is a whole other thing. When they asked my wife and I said no, they asked why not, and our response was that he was asking me to go through 3 more pregnancies on top of the 2 we'd agreed on. He then said that if we weren't willing to give him children, he wouldn't do the same for us. We said that was his right to change his mind, but he was asking too much from us. So now no one is having biological children. My wife and I were seriously considering adoption before the brother's suggestion ever came up, and we do still want to try that, so at the end of the day we'd be just as happy to have a non-biological child as a biological one. However, the brother, who doesn't want to adopt, has told their mother, who has told the extended family, and it appears that just about everyone in my wife's family believes that we should agree to it, and return the favor. So basically, if he gives us children, then I should do the same for him, and by the time I'm done everyone has their desired number of biological babies. The brother and his wife are similarly pressuring us, telling us they'd give us children, so why won't we give them kids, and that the two things are the same, and called us hypocrites because we would have kids with their help, but won't help them have kids. What do you think? Are we being unreasonable? Info: neither wife in this scenario, my wife or his, is able to produce viable eggs or carry to term, so some form of in vitro fertilization/surrogacy wouldn't be possible involving either of them. And I'm basically the only chance at biological children for any of us. The brother and his wife can't afford to pay a surrogate. We have tried to negotiate the number of kids, but they want exactly 3 kids, and they want them all to be full siblings because they're worried if I gave them one child with the brother's sperm, and they adopted the rest, then they'd subconsciously prefer the one who was related to the brother. To clarify, of the 2 biological requirements of creating children, producing viable eggs, and carrying to term, I am the only woman in this scenario that can do both, while my wife and my brother-in-law's wife can't do either. The only people in this situation capable of having children are myself and my wife's brother. Again, brother-in-law. I am not having my biological brother's babies. Also, we may go back to the adoption option, which was our plan before the brother was even suggested. But what do you all think? Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.